On. What's up, everyone? Coach Tony here. In this training, I'm going to break down how UC admission readers evaluate your UC application. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick for those who are joining me live. Can you guys let me know if the screen is being shared, if you guys can see what I am showing up here? Would appreciate the words so people in the future can make sure I'm not just talking to a black screen is all. All right, fantastic. Looks like we are screen sharing correctly. So for in today's session, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the common mistakes we see a lot of students make and how to avoid them, insider knowledge of how the UC admission system actually works, and what readers, load spoilers like myself, look for in your applications. We do some Q&A at the very end, and how we can help you guys out if you guys are interested in that. And for those who stick around to the end, we'll go ahead and give you access to the slides so you guys can don't have to like take notes as you go. Just pay attention, focus here, okay? If it's a very first time meeting, my name is Coach Tony. And when I went through this process, I got into over 30 colleges. I got a full ride at UCI, full ride at UCLA. My parents were pumped because I'm from the Orange County area. I did not go there. I went to UC Berkeley to get away from my parents there. Loved the experience. I did get homesick, but I loved my experience at the college. When I graduated, I actually became a reader with UC Berkeley. What that means is that when your students are submitting their applications to the schools, I was one of the people who read the applications and I recommended yes and no to these students and these families, right? So doing that, you start to understand a little bit of what goes on behind the scenes, what really is important, right? Pretty much after that, became the head of a high school test prep company. I worked at UCLA's outreach program as a director, started my own high school, was TikTok's first college admissions partner, and I've been helping high school families with this college admissions process for the last 16 years now. And right over the last years, we have students getting into tons and tons and tons and tons and tons, tons of colleges throughout the years. And then it just keeps adding on and adding on as well. And hopefully, you guys are next in this journey. Okay. So first off, in this training, let's go ahead and debunk some common myths and misconceptions that a lot of people think about when they think of the UC admissions process. Number one, they think only the top kids, only the uber percentage of the students gets in. People with the top GPAs, people with the top test scores. Number one, no, that is not true. If that was true, then all the 4.8s, there are enough 4.8s in the world, 4.7s in the world to fill up the top schools and not need to have anyone else. Clearly, that is not true. You probably know people who didn't have the top best GPs get in, and UCs are test blind. So that's definitely not even a thing either. Okay. Number one, people said the state bias. Oh man, you only take California families. We work with families in California. We work with families in New York, in Texas, Illinois, Virginia, Wisconsin, Michigan, all over. All the I don't think I can say I said 50 states, maybe 49, 48, 49 states, I'm pretty sure as of today. And no, right? Because even California, as state schools, they do block out a section of slots for out of state for international students. Specifically, by the way, it's 18%. 18% of the slots is reserved for out of state and international families. Right? People think that their myth is extracurricular overloads, do a lot of things. And the thing is, quantity is important to a certain level, but what matters more is going to be the quality and the commitment to the things that you are doing. That is important. People also think another myth is major is the end all be all of things, right? And yes, to a certain level, again, also that is somewhat true. However, when it comes to most UCs admit by the college not the exact major. Again, very, very few UCs do. For example, UCI is one of the few schools that do admit by major. Like the fun stat is 55% of the incoming of the freshman applicants apply to only one of 10 majors, which is hilarious, right? And that school does admit by major, but majority of the UCs admit by the college or the school that the majors house under. So that's the other benchmark you want to think about. Another myth we see is essays aren't that important. Just focus on school, 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 and you are good. That is wrong. Absolutely wrong. For us, the essays are literally the most important part of the entire admissions process. Here, another myth we see is letter recommendations are super duper important. Maybe to the private schools, but UCs don't even accept these. They don't even ask for them in the entire process. Again, that being said, little asterisks as well. A lot of these have little asterisks, little caveats, is that some UCs will or may ask for a supplemental where they may ask for letters of rec, but that is not the majority of schools, and majority of people will not be offered that opportunity. People think all the UCs have the same criteria. I would say they have similar criteria, right? Similar criteria. However, each UC does have a priority or focus based on what we've seen so far. People think transfers are so second-class admits as well, that they have a less valued way in. No, that is not true at all. Transfers are awesome. They're pretty much doing the same requirements as the freshmen are, just in a different pathway as well, too. Some people think undeclared is easier to get in. Not anymore in today's world. Undeclared, again, falls under the colleges, and even, again, like I mentioned earlier, you're getting admitted by the college. Even the schools like a UCI, undeclared is one of those top 10 impacted majors. So actually it hurts you to, not hurts you, but it makes it a little more competitive to be undeclared to a school like a UCI there. Okay. Another myth we see is UCs don't consider individual circumstances. That's super false again. Right? Again, UCs use something called holistic review. We'll talk about in a little bit. It looks at everything that you have done, right? Everything that you've done, learn about your growth, what you become, what you've overcame the whole way. These are all really, really big parts of the process itself. Okay. Now that we kind of broke some myths, let's talk about the UC criterias and methods. What really does matter in a UC application? And there are 13 of them. There's 13 things that readers are trained to look for in all apps. These are called the comprehensive review factors, right? So there's 13, I believe it's 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 13, I'm still right. 13 factors that are really, really important to get correct, right? You guys can take a look at that. You can read through each piece as well, too. But in short, there's a lot of words to say. This is the holistic approach, meaning colleges will look at every single part of the student, not just their academics, but every single thing. And one of the big words you'll hear me say a lot today in this training is context. Context is going to be one of the most important parts of the entire process itself. So let's talk about it. So when it comes to your application, right? So I asked earlier who's joining me live right now, what grade is everyone in? And we had a good chunk of seniors who are here as well too. So for our seniors, if you're watching this live, then you have like a month-ish, right, until your apps are due to the schools. These are the pieces on your app you need to make sure you get correct to maximize your chances of admissions. Number 1 is your academic performance. Number 2 is your extracurricular activities. Number 3 is your personal insight question, aka the UC essays. Number 4 is any special talent, achievements, or awards. And number 5 is any other contextual factors, things that the readers should be aware of to fully understand your application, right? Something we're going to call the X factor for today. So the X factors are things that you can do to kind of help stand out a little more. These are things that like readers are, again, trained to look for, right? So again, definitely have these on your apps. First one, quantitative versus qualitative, right? You want both, right? You want both, but between these two, we do care a lot more about the qualitative aspects of your application. Meaning, if you just joined like 20 clubs your senior year, how much does that show you about you versus being involved in 3, 4 clubs over 4 years? That's a different metric here, okay? Number 2, personal narratives. Again, this is the personal insight questions, aka the PIQs, right? The UCSAs. These are narratives, right? In theory, when you look at 2 students, they could have the same GPA. When you look at 2 students, they could also break down to have the same exact classes, the same exact grades. So when in theory, what else do you look at, right? There's the activities. But in today's world, a lot of people are kind of copying each other as well too, and doing a lot of the same activities too. So in theory, 2 students, very rare, but could have the same exact things. What's going to make the students different though is their story, right? How they got to where they're at today, talking about their journey, their resilience, their personal growth, their challenges, what they did to overcome it, their unique perspectives. All these contribute to your narrative, aka your insights that you'll share in the written component in the prompts, right? Number 4, fitting with the university values, right? All the UCs have values, they have missions, for example, community service, leadership, right? They want someone with their same values to go. It's like when you work for different companies, parents, when you work for different companies, right? They all have different values. And usually you like to work at places that have the same values as you, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Also, same thing, university, they're looking for students who embody their school values there. Next thing is taking initiative, right? Again, think about these. At these schools, they want these schools, basically, I call them colleges like branding machines, right? They want to put their stamp of approval on you. So then when you graduate from their school, they'd be like, wow, you're probably doing something good in the world. I'm going to brand you as a blank alum, right? So taking initiative is one of those traits that helps a school know, hey, if you started a new club, if you did your own, like, let's say, independent research, hey, you started a community project, right? It's going to showcase a student's drive, a student's leadership, a student's proactive mindset. Don't you want that if you were a university, wouldn't you want a student who has that? Because then most likely they'll probably do more of that when they get to the college, and vice versa. They'll be doing more and more and more, right? The big thing here is you do not have to be perfect. Right? I had, I had a family ask earlier, right before it's college. Well, we were answering questions for our coaching families. Someone's like, "Do I need to explain a B on my academics?" And no, B is not a bad grade, right? B is good. I think that's what B is good, right? B is good. A is above average. So B is good is the biggest thing there. You don't have to be perfect. What you want to do is you want to be authentic in who you are, right? And again, as a mission gets more and more competitive, there's less and less ways to quote unquote hack the system to try to get by. Just do the things, because from a reader's point of view, we talked about this. We recently had a training. We did a roundtable. We brought in all of our top strategists and coaches, and we talked about this. And the big thing here is that we can sniff it. We can sniff if you don't genuinely care about a certain topic and you're just doing something just to do something, right? That's why we tell our students, what do you like to do? What do you enjoy to do? Let's do that. That is the key for us through this whole process here, okay? That being said, let's talk about what does a UC reader actually see on the application. What do we think about, right? What do we train to go through as we look at the application itself? And before we actually dive into the actual, like, what we see, let me show you what training looks like. Because a lot of people are like, oh, you might say a certain way and think a certain way. Maybe this will give you some context of how a reader kind of goes through this whole process. So the first thing we go through comprehensive review training, those 13 factors that we showed you earlier, right? AKA holistic review. We review all that. We break every single thing down so we fully understand what all those things are, right? We also, next thing we do is UC resources training to understand, hey, what's so special about the UCs? What's like school specific things as well too. I would say acronyms, big things that's happening, trends that's noticing as there. The next big one is a really big one. We call it bias training, right? As humans, because humans are still reading these apps, UCs haven't shifted to AI yet. One day I'm sure they will, but not yet. So right now it's still humans, and humans, we all have a natural bias. We're all biased in one way or another. And if you say you're not, I beg to differ, right? We all have prejudices in different ways. It might not be negative, but there is like thoughts when you hear certain words, you think of certain emotions, you think of certain stories. That's bias. You're biased right away too. So when you're reading a student and you see certain keywords, a student reference certain stories, they say certain things, right? Your biases naturally come up. So what we do is we literally spend a day on just breaking our biases, but not just breaking, but be aware, being aware of our biases and why we feel certain things. So again, everyone is kind of the same. Then we do regional training. What that means is that every single part of California, every single state in the United States, even international, right? So China, India, these other countries who are applying as well too, they all have particular things that's like very regional specific, right? There's things that like, hey, keep in mind this region is gonna have these traits to them, right? So and during the region, there's also like, hey, these high schools have these things in them. So as a reader, we are gonna be aware, like, okay, I'm gonna know what to expect because readers do read on a regional basis. Okay. And the last piece that we do, and we do this consistently throughout the entire process, is something called norming. Norming is when we basically during training, we all read the same app and we all should come up to the same conclusion, yes or no, right? And that's kind of how like the everyone's able to read and be the same. Spoilers for our coaching families. This is what we do with our coaching families, right? We norm the apps. So as you guys are submitting the apps, we are reading them, like, and all of us are like, yep, this is a good, or this is the feedback we're gonna have the student, and we get everyone normed that way too, just like how the readers do it. So when any of us can read any app, it's the same. It's not like, oh, Coach Tony said yes, but it's actually a no. No, if Coach Tony says yes, statistically, probably the other people will say yes as well too. And that's what norming does. It gets us all thinking about the same page. That being said, after we go training, we dive right in. So, by the way, actually, right now, this time period, early November, this is when the readers will start to actually read. So, if you've submitted your UC apps already, as of today, some of you may have already been read at least one time. There are multiple reads in the process. So, but if you have submitted, there's a chance maybe that your app has already been read there. Okay. So that's part one. Okay. So let's look into it. So let's say when I'm a reader right now, and I'm reading I'm pulling an app to read. There is no order that I'm going in the sense I'm not pulling from a certain high school. I'm not pulling from a certain thing. It's random. It's literally random. I say the best analogy is like a washing machine, right? So as students apply, right, their apps get thrown into like a washing machine per se. It just circles at the top. It's pretty much what it does. And as a reader, if I'm ready to read an app, I just reach my hand in and maybe bobbing for apples, probably a better analogy than washing machine. Bobbing for apples, right? Pull my hand in, grab an apple out, and then I start reading that one. All I know is that because it'll be in the region that I'm assigned, so I'll know the regional aspects of it is number one. But that's the big thing. Okay. So the first thing I see when I read a new student's application is I see the school's information. Right? I see the school's information here. So I see the school's name. I know the school's metrics. So they tell me how many honors classes are available, how many students took the honors classes, how many students took the AP exams, what's the average scores. So we see all the different metrics that a reader about a school that I should be able to know to help me make a decision. Why this is important is I can understand the context of your school, of the school that you kind of grew up at or how you went around. Because a school with a lot of resources and a school with not a lot of resources, is not fair to compare them against each other, right? If a school doesn't have a lot of resources versus a school that does, right? We want to read within the context of who you are. This is why, and for our coaching families, right? We tell you, hey, tell me about your school, because your school is going to be the reason why we know to recommend X, Y, and Z thing. Okay. After we read through the school information and see that information, the next page is going to be the student information. So for those of you working on the UC app currently, it's that first section, right? Of like asking you for your name, your facts, your where you live, your family, all that stuff as well too. We all see all that. I see the number, your GPA, I see the honors taken, I see the you compared to your class, your high school class, and you compare to the pool, meaning every single person applying to Berkeley itself. I also see the parent and family information that you shared into your app there. Keep in mind, we do not see demographics. A lot of you guys mentioned that. We don't see demographics. There's a page where it says this is completely optional. It truly is optional. Readers don't even have, it's not even in our radar of what it is. That goes directly to the stat team of the school. So when you guys look up like the demographic breakdown of a certain school, that's what it is. And people, when you see the word unknown, those are the families that skipped answering this page and left it blank. That's the unknown. But you'll see people share that context, that information there as well. And for this, why this is important, so we can understand context, right? Again, it's never fair to compare student against student ever, because everyone has different context. However, in the context of school, right? In the context of your opportunities, from an academic lens, right? From a resources lens, from a community lens, this gives us a good kind of gauge-ish idea, right? It's number one. Number two, the family information tells me a little bit more about the family situation, right? Because you guys will share like, oh, this is the family income, and we do see that. What does that mean, though? Does that mean, hey, the family with 300 has more things? Not really. Again, that's what, by the way, it's one of the biases that we pull right away. So fun little things. When you see an income, that, by the way, is one of those easy biases that people think of, like, oh man, the 300 family has a lot of resources. So one of the fun exercises they had us go through was like, hey, what if that student with the 300K, their parent didn't give them a penny, and their parents made them like figure every single thing out on their own? We don't know that yet. This is just the facts and figures, right? But again, I bet you some of you have thought about that, right? Of everything as well too. So again, and also 30,000, depending on the area. Depending on the area, that's a lot. Depending on the area, it's not as much, right? Again, in California, it's not a lot at all. But but like it depends on different geographic locations, right? That means different things to different groups of people. So this is where your biases come in. So again, as a reader, we just want to see within context, right? Basically, that's a resource thing. You had opportunity to resource. Does it mean it's open to you? I don't know that yet, so I can't make that assumption. But we do see this information here. The one quick thing I'll touch on is that GPA. I see that for half a second and I move on, right? I don't spend more than half a second on the GPA. A lot of you guys are focusing way too much time on GPA. For me, I was like, got it, and I move. Because again, the GPA alone tells me nothing. If I see 4.0, I'm like, cool. If I see 3.2, I'm like, cool. If I see 4.7, I'm like, cool. Because again, that doesn't tell me much about a student. I'm curious to learn what happened as well too. That what if that 4.0 student, right? That 4.0 student took basic classes and zero honors. Then in theory, yeah, that's an easy 4.0. Let's say the 3.2 student, one of my real life examples, one of my students got sick for a semester, could not go to school, right? So they they had a health condition where they could not go to school, all right? So as a result, their grades dipped because their school wouldn't allow them to do like makeup work and stuff. No, they did, but it didn't work out correctly for them. So his grades dipped for that semester, which pulled everything down. But every other semester was amazing. And you look at his activities, you're like, holy moly, it's good as well too. It was just like a technicality of how the school sets the academics. So again, what's good, what's bad, you don't know until you have more, magical word, context, right? So that's just the first admission. After this, they're going to see your test scores. Again, UCs are test blind. That means no SATs, no ACTs. Your students, by the way, are trying to sneak these in. There's a section that asks like, are you a non-native speaker, the TOEFL, the EIFL, or you can sneak in your SAT English scores. Some of you guys are sneaking your test scores here, and a lot of you guys are domestic. You're from the United States, meaning you do not fill that section out, means you do not stick that in. They even tell you, again, I'm really big on bending the rules as much as we can to help us out. I don't want to break the rules. The UCs clearly say, do not send in test scores. So if they tell me not to do something, I am smart enough to not do that thing. That being said, they do ask for APs and IBs, so I will share everything, right? Keep in mind that some students are not the greatest test takers. As a result of that, their scores that might be so high. For the UCs, don't stress out too much, right? Submit all the scores. It will not hurt you because how the UCs do their evaluation process is nothing really dings you. It only adds to your app. So if it's not super great, it'll just kind of skip it and move on to the next piece. But they're using things to help add on to your profile itself. Okay, so that's test scores. The next piece to look at is the classes and your grades. The UCs are very particular. They'll only look at your A through G classes, right? So if you took like PE or health or classes like TA that doesn't count towards the A through G requirements, it will not show up on the reader's end, okay? And you're gonna designate the honors for this as well, right? Colleges, UCs will see your ninth grade classes and grades. A lot of people think like, oh no, the UC GPA only does 10th and beyond. Yes, but I do see ninth grade though. So you still want to do your best you can in ninth grade. Same thing with 12th grade. They won't see your grades, but they'll see your class schedule. That's how important your schedule is 12th grade itself, okay? The reason what we want to do here is we want to show the readers that like, hey, I'm doing really well in high school, so when I come to college, I'll be good as well too. The two big things we're looking for is very strong grades and strong grade trends is the thing here for the academics. Moving over to activities. There are 20 slots, or think of it as 20 opportunities to share how you spend your time. Unlike the Common App, the UCs do not care about the order. You can put a whatever order you want. They're going to rearrange it anyways. On the back end, there are 6 categories of these activities: awards, educational prep programs, other outside coursework, extracurricular activities, volunteer or work experience. Again, everything you do is self-reported. There's no right or wrong area for any activity. So I always ask a student, where do you want to classify this activity? They tell me this. I'm like, sounds good. Go put it there. Because there's no right or wrong area here. Okay, that's the biggest one. Things that readers are looking for is your passion, your interest, the commitment, leadership, and again, the X factor, things that makes you stand out is the things here. Okay, that's the activities. The last piece and probably the biggest part is going to be the heart of the application we call the personal insight question. Think of it as AKA the UC the UC PIQs, right? The UC essays. So with this, they'll give you 8 prompts to pick. You pick 4. There's 350 words max for each of these sections. This is where you share the narrative. This is what you say behind the scenes. This is what you share. Here's how I got to today. This is where you share why I did what I did, not what you did, because I already know kind of what you did, or many students will tell me kind of what they did. What I'm looking for is why did you do that? That is going to be the key. Okay. In terms of examples, is it okay if I go ahead and break down an example of a pretty not so great for PIQ and a pretty decent one? Let me know in the chat if it's okay if I break down a good. If not, we can skip it. This is a long one, that's why. So we can chat about a good versus a not so good one as well. Right, several yeses in the chat. Let's go ahead and chat about that as well too. Okay, so first one is a not so great one, right? So a not so great one. This student picked the example of a leadership experience in which they have positively influenced others, help resolve disputes, or contribute to group efforts over time. So the response reads like this. So I was in a club last year. It was cool. We did things, had meetings and stuff. I think I was a leader, but I'm not sure. I mean, there were times when people didn't agree on things, and I guess I stepped in. But yeah, there were so many other things happening at school, like soccer and video games. Speaking of which, I love playing video games. My favorite is Super Space Invaders. It's super cool. I've reached level 50. Oh, and by the way, my cat is awesome. She's so fluffy. Anyway, the club was fun. 99 words. That is an example of a not so great PIQ response. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about a better one, right? So what is a better one? So this is also the same leadership experience prompt, right? And this one, this student wrote, in my junior year, I took on the presidency of the Environmental Warriors Club. It wasn't just a title to me. My upbringing in a coastal town where I witnessed the dire effects of pollution on marine life firsthand had deeply ingrained in me the importance of sustainable practices. The memory of seagulls entangled in plastic or the eroding shoreline was more than just a sight, it was a call to action. The dwindling participation in our recycling drives at school was a challenge I took personally. While the club had passionate members, varied ideas led to disputes. I could have taken the easy route in forcing my own perspective, but my past experiences taught me the value of unity and understanding. I organized brainstorm sessions, ensuring every voice was heard and actively seeking feedback. The initiative of holding workshops and partnering with local business was born from these sessions. But more importantly, these discussions were a mirror to my growth. I learned to navigate differences, align them with my core belief in environmental conservation. I witnessed the impact of our campaign, not just in numbers, but in the strengthened bond of our community towards sustainability. However, the success wasn't just about the club or the community, it was personal. Every recycled bottle, every informed individual took me back to my coastal roots, reminding me of the small differences we make. My journey with the environmental wars was more than just leadership. It's a reflection of my identity, my roots, my unwavering commitment to the environment. I understood that leadership is not about authority, but connecting personal passions with collective action. And in every step, I carry with me the memories of my hometown, using them as a beacon to guide my actions and decisions. Okay, so that's an example of a better one. And the reason why I say better is not the best. Reading this, I'm seeing a bunch of errors as student at the end. This sounds like a big old cheesy conclusion. We probably don't need that. We can cut it down as well too. Going back here, this student talked about this student brainstorm, making sure every voice was heard and seeking feedback. I'd ask the student, why do they care about making sure every voice was heard? Why don't they just like dictatorship style, just telling people what to do? Because you are doing a good thing about being a dictator in this case, right? You're telling people exactly what to do. But why does the student care about every voice being heard? Why do they care about getting feedback? Right? Why do they care about getting better? Because they're doing a good thing, but it's not like they want to do more of that. So again, there are opportunities for this to get a lot stronger, to talk more about the student. And this was only 297. We want to keep it above 330, 340 words is the goal here. Okay, so again, better, but not the best. Definitely not the best. There's a lot better examples that our students have done. But this is you can see a stark difference, right? One is just like meh, no structure, no real point to it. The second one, there was a central story, but more it's about learning about who the student is, and that's the key here. Okay. Next piece, academic additional comments, right? So the UC app, there's two extra sections. One is called academic comments. One is additional comments. One is 550 characters. One is 550 words. What you want to do is give the readers more context into situations. Let's say you have a weird grade. You can talk about it as well, okay? Let's say there's a context that's important to you. By the way, this is I forgot to edit this presentation. Do not talk about a pandemic, because it's one of those things that it happened to everyone. And plus, this year's graduating class is one of the classes that does not relate to it at all, right? Or per se in high school, right? Of course, we all relate to it, but not in high school is the biggest thing there. So focus on other things that's kind of unique or a little off there, okay? That being said, like I mentioned earlier, there is going to be a group of people that may get additional thing, and this is called augmented review. So for those who do get this, you should see a letter from the school, or like it's probably not like it's digital now, right? For in the month of like December, I will say. Usually in December, certain schools will say, hey, we want to invite you to do an augmented review of your application. About 15% of students will get this opportunity. If you do get the opportunity, is they're going to ask you a few more questions. They're going to ask you for your first semester grades. That's your seventh semester. And they're going to ask you, do you want to share optional 2 letters of recommendation? When they say optional, it is not optional. Do the letters of recommendation is the tip here. Again, you can't ask for this. This is kind of assigned for you. Just a heads up for those who do get this. That means the readers thought you were on the maybe pile, right? If you don't get it, that means you're either a yes, a no, or a maybe. But if you get it, you know you're a maybe. That's the condition. So again, not every maybe will get this. A certain batch of them may get this as well too. So it's one of those like, if you don't get it, it's a good not sure thing. If you get it, you know for a fact you are in the maybe pile from the first read. And this is after only the first read itself. So the second reader can get this extra context. Again, they're going to say it's optional. It is not optional. There's a reason why you got it. That means your app was so down the middle that they couldn't figure out where to push you yes or no. It wasn't bad to push you a no. It wasn't strong enough to push it yes. So this is supposed to help you push it one way or another, okay? When it comes to the letters of recommendation, the biggest tip I have for you, do not have your recommender vouch for you. Meaning, don't, if you read, okay, you shouldn't be reading what they say, but if you can understand what they're writing, a lot of people use the letters of rec to just say, oh yeah, the student was smart, the student was great, I love them. But I can see you're smart. I look at your grades. I can see you're awesome. I look at your stuff. I want to learn new information. What haven't I learned so far? This is the additional push over the edge. Again, everything you tell me, I'm going to treat as true. I'm not going to question anything on your app because, again, you sign an integrity agreement. You're saying that this is true. The student did this. The student wrote this, student everything, right? So that's that. But to make the lesson rec really strong, you want to have someone push you over the edge there. Okay, in a good way, pushing over the edge in a good way. Okay, so how the process works when you get like once I finish the whole thing, there's kind of 3 categories that you kind of fall under: strongly recommend, recommend, do not recommend. Think of it as yes, maybe, no is the best way to think about it. Readers don't keep track. But right, there are recommended percentages. So majority of the apps will get a no, smallest minority will get a yes, and a few in the middle as well too. It just naturally happened, and actually doing that for multiple years, it really just naturally happened the way perfectly, and naturally with all the hundreds of readers together, we just naturally hit the score as well too. So pretty much when your apps gets read, at least two readers read it. Both of us give a recommendation, then it goes to the admissions committee. And basically, by the time the committee gets it, it's like January, February at that time. And then you can tell you has a month. There's a month before, yes, the official decision. So that's why the committee really relies on the readers to like go through, do the due diligence to make sure this is the best it can be. So by the time it gets to them, they're seeing, oh yeah, it makes sense. The readers both said yes, we skimmed it. It's a yes, the student's gonna get a yes. That's kind of how the logic is. Okay. With that said, there are kind of comments that readers are trained to share, and it's these, right? So achievement in college prep, love of learning, leadership, challenge, cross-cultural engagement, originality, creativity, demonstrate concern for others, achievement, academic enrichment programs, exemplary, sustained non-academic achievement, and a special talent. So a lot of these things, right? A lot of these things are things that you should be doing naturally throughout your application. Again, pretty much if you do everything we've been sharing a lot, rigor for the academics, doing things you love, you pretty much hit all these naturally, right? Without having to force these. Again, you don't have to, this is not a checklist to follow, but these are things that, keeping in mind the back of the head of readers, they're kind of looking out for in your application itself. Okay. With that, we have a bit of time. I was able to pace this call pretty well. So if you guys have questions, I'm sure you do, go ahead and start dropping them in the Q&A box. Try to get to as many questions as I can for you guys on this session here. And as you guys are typing out your questions, I do have a special invitation for you guys, right? So for the special invitation, if anyone is interested in trying out experiencing our coaching services for free with no string attached. So if you're interested, you're not yet one of our coaching families, but you want to get some feedback, some tips, I invite you to take advantage of a free 15-minute coaching call with one of our advisors, one of our college admission experts. Basically, it's a 15-minute call. They'll ask you a few questions, and they'll give you like 2 to 3 recommendations on what like the targeted thing you should be doing next for your child, whether they are whatever grade they are at right now, right? It's not a sales pitch. You literally cannot buy anything on this call. You can't, they won't even take your credit card if you gave it to them on this call, right? So there's no sales pitches on this session itself. Again, if you are interested, you let them know they can set up a second call with you about programs. But again, this first call, just a peer coaching call. We just want to help you guys out to make sure you are good to go. So if you guys are interested, if anyone is interested, go ahead and tap. I'll go ahead and drop it for those who are here in the live chat. For those of you watching the replay, the link should be somewhere on this page. Or if you want to send a text, go ahead and text the 9949 298 6234. The word coach, right? One more time, 949 298 6234. And the word is coach. And then you text that. Our team will go ahead and send you the link for that 15-minute coaching call there, right? But and there's more. There's more. If anyone does book, so this is something we're running the first week of November. So this call is live in November. If you guys do book this call the week of November, we're giving you guys something exciting, right? I've been working on this. It's finally after many months. Our book, all right? We have a book called UC Admission Secrets Revealed, where I break down the exact tips, tricks, and strategies from a former UC Berkeley admissions reader. If you guys are interested, for anyone who books a 15-minute coaching call this first week in November, we're going to go ahead and give you guys the first 2 chapters free. You guys can get a free read of the first 2 chapters in this book itself there. And if those of you who already had your 15 minutes, text, that the number's mine, by the way. Feel free to text me. I can send you the first 2 chapters as a thank you for booking your call sometime with us in the past. And if you're one of our coaching families, hang on tight. Next week, I'm giving you guys the whole book. So you guys will get the whole entire book next week in Discord itself. Okay. That being said, let's go ahead and answer some questions for you guys here today. So first one is, I've been trying to understand what data reviewers have to review in the context of their high school. So for example, is each high school assigned a reviewer where the reviewer compare applicants from the high school, or is it based on application from prior years or other? Thank you. Awesome. So 2-part question for you, right? So 2-part answer, I mean. Part 1 is that, the data we see is derived from the things that your counselor gives the school, right? So the information your counselor gives the school, we know that like how many AP classes your school offers, what's the average amount of APs, the average amount of honors courses that someone takes, all the average APs, number of APs, scores of APs. So a lot of these kind of metrics, the counselor puts this in so the readers can get a hold of that and they understand it, number 1. There is a section where the readers do see historical data of like, hey, historically at like last year at this particular high school, right? This many students apply to the UCs, this many students apply to this particular UC, this number got in, this percentage got in as well too. But that doesn't mean this year needs to follow that last year, right? That's again giving context to the reader, so they are aware of that is the biggest thing, right? So let's say you see a school where the percentage is like 5%, right? So like you mentally know, all right, most likely it's gonna stay ish around the same number. It's not gonna drastically jump up to like 50%, but it probably stay 5. Might be a good year for them, and it might go up. Might not be a good year because it's a competitive batch. Might go down a little bit, but that's kind of rough number. For example, right? For those who don't know, I actually used to read for the Bay Area. That's how I go. I'm really good at the Bay Area type of schools. With the Bay Area, they're wild, right? They're a little extreme with stuff. So a lot of the schools you see a really high admit rate, and it's not because they're close to Berkeley at all. It's because if I compare those students against most other students in California, Bay Area students would dominate. If you let Bay Area compete against the entire state, all UCs will be filled up with Bay Area students. That's the level of like rigor that those students over there do, right? So that being said, right? So we keep that back of our head. That also being said, I don't read the same school back to back to back to back. It's random. Again, like a bobbing for apples, right? I don't know what color apple I'm getting next or what type of apple I'm getting next. I just reach my hand in. I know that every apple in this pool came from this area. So I pull it. I might pull from the same school back to back to back, but that doesn't mean that's the case either. And as a reader, we read in multiple regions too. So I might read Bay Area for one app, the next app different particular region as well too. It's still very similar, by the way, but that's kind of how it works, right? I don't read in order. We don't read by the order of submissions. We don't break it down per school, per reader. It's just a batch of readers from a certain region. They go in and they evaluate and they recommend. So that's the first question there. Okay. Number 2, UC Berkeley asked by Olson for an English score from either SD, AC, or IB prior to acceptance. Does that mean he was an augmented review? I need more context on this. I'm not quite sure what this may refer to because augmented review, if you got it in December-ish month, so if you got in December-ish month, maybe, because that's what augmented review is. I don't know if it's recent though. I don't believe they've asked that. Our students for this past year, they weren't asked that in augmented, so I don't think that's the case either. Another possible explanation for that is you may your child may not have met all the requirements, right, for admissions. So that's why certain test scores and certain scores would be able to validate that. There's this whole concept of validation. Like if you have a high enough score, it can validate your requirements. So again, I'm not super sure. If you want to slide my DMs or text me, we can definitely chat this because I'm curious myself what this is. But yeah, no, augmented reviews, if you got in December, maybe that's the case. But if you got like way after, then it might be a validation thing than anything else. But again, I'm curious because UCs, I know for, and I'm also curious when this was as well too, because especially for UCs, they are test blind. They've been test blind for 4 years now, so they don't even look at anything SAT or AC related for anything. So unless you told me this is like from 6 years ago, then okay, cool, different story, different answers as well too. So yeah, definitely. Again, I'm curious. Whoever anonymous is, slide my DMs. I'm super curious to learn more about that myself. All right. What if I repeat 9th grade at a new school due to COVID struggles? How should I discuss it? So there's a way to share this on your app. I don't remember exactly how. I have it in my notes somewhere. But basically, so I'm assuming you took 9th grade and you took 9th grade again. So in theory, as a senior, I'm assuming when you're a senior, you're technically supposed to be a first year in college. Right? So you're like a year above everything, right? It's kind of how it sounds like. If that's the case, then nothing really changes per se, in the sense of like you, as a first year applicant, you just go back and share the last 4 years of high school, 9, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then you should be good to go there. And then you can share that. I would share that with the readers, so the readers are aware of the situation. That way here. For them. But in theory, I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to. Is the biggest thing there? Okay. Discuss it. If I repeated, yeah. Let me know if that was helpful. Or feel free to text me. That's my number 949-298-6234. And then drop me the same question. Give me more context so I can give you probably a better answer as well too. Okay. Where would you list 5-week summer pre-college programs at a university? Would that be in the additional context area? So I think that falls more under the educational prep programs. So I will put that under the educational prep programs first. That could also fall under extracurriculars. If you want to think of it that way, you can put it under that way. Again, either sections work. You could also correct. There is the additional comments. I would also add that possibly to the additional comments. The area doesn't matter too much. It's whatever allows you to share what you did the most is the answer. Okay. The scores were asked in February. He was a freshman, so it's February 24th. So it may be something else also, right? So if you were asked in February and they're asking for test scores, did you know you got into school? Did you know you got into the school when they asked you? Because what that usually means also is that they're trying to qualify you for a scholarship. There's something called Regents, right? So there's a few of them. Regents is one example. So there's a few scholarships. So February is usually like scholarship season. So what it is if, let's say, certain students were exceptional, like for example, as a reader, if I saw a student and I thought the student was like top 1% of their class, right? I'd invite them. I was like, hey, I want to consider you for basically those are full ride scholarships, right? So can you share me more information? So again, it depends on which program. It looks like in your case, you didn't find out, you didn't get until April there. So again, I'm curious myself. For me, I think because then that's odd-ish engineering program. It might be a specific engineering thing, a specific engineering like scholarship or something they were looking for. Because yeah, UCs are test blind, so they wouldn't ask you for SAT unless it wasn't admissions, meaning it wasn't a admission things. It was for something else. So I'd be curious to see the email thread and be like, was it admissions who asked you, or was it like a department who asked you? Because departments don't do admissions, by the way. Departments qualify for programs and like scholarships and all that stuff as well, right? So that is all. Again, I'm curious. Feel free to slide my DMs. Let me know. We can chat a little more about that as well. But I'm assuming, this is my assumption now, I'm assuming it's probably a program that they're trying to qualify you guys for that's not admissions, but from like the engineering school specifically. Like a full ride. They call it Regents. There's a bunch of other ones. There's IAP, IAS. A few of these kind of ones out there as well too. Okay. That is pretty much it. So one more time for those who are interested, go ahead again, book your 15-minute coaching call with our team. If you guys are interested, you might get me as the person talking to you. I have a few slots on the calendar this week. If you guys want to go ahead and text as well too, in case you can't click the link, go ahead and text coach to 949-298-6234. And then again, if you already had your 15-minute coaching calls, go ahead and text me. And if you're already one of our coaching family, just hang on tight. Next week, I'm dropping the whole book for you guys with an audiobook for you guys as well too. So double bonus, little secret surprise for you guys next week too. Okay. That is pretty much it for this trading. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you guys on the next one.